All right, good afternoon, everybody. We are having our virtual plant clinic today on spring lawn care because it is already spring. We are live streaming to Facebook today, so if you guys see all those little buttons in the corner, that's what's going on. We are also recording. This will be available probably tomorrow on YouTube in about 24 hours if you want to come back and check it out. David, thanks so much as always for being with us today. For anybody who has questions during the class, just go ahead and send those to the Q&A box. If you're on Facebook, send them into the comment section. I will be monitoring both. And David, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you because I know you've got a lot to cover.
I do have a lot to cover, and as you know, I like to leave as much time as possible for the questions and everything. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And again, thanks for being here. And again, Sally, thanks for organizing all this. I really enjoy this opportunity to, even if it's through a computer, an opportunity to talk to everybody and share and exchange ideas. So as I mentioned, it's spring. Well, if I talked to you yesterday, I'd say, no, it was winter, right? What a crazy, crazy time it has been. But for a lot of us, and particularly with me, I feel like the spring season really does kick off with the lawn care. I've had people coming in here since February, when it was, again, 60, 70 degrees, starting on the lawns early this year. I mean, I even had people in January with the mild temperatures and stuff. So we got off to an early start, but yes, very, very beautiful spring-like day. And again, for me, when I see all my great customers coming back asking about their lawn, that is where it begins. So I'm going to go ahead and get into this with sharing my screen. And as you know, please send all your questions through the chat to Sally, and she will send those questions my way. Okay. For some reason, this doesn't want to start. It might be because as you can see, I have turf grass with me today as my tabletop. And so I'm thinking maybe my clicker's not working here. Let's try this again. All right, there we go, right? Everybody looking good. So let's talk a little bit about lawns and understand. I'd like to always begin by just talking about their seasonal growth patterns, understanding the biology of the grass, because everything that we do, all of our cultural practices, all of our decisions, everything we're going to do with our lawn really should be working in conjunction with the grass and its natural biology and how it wants to grow. So most of us in this region by far are growing tall fescue bluegrass lawns. This is a cool season grass. So the happy place for this is going to be where temperatures are about 50 to 75 degrees and 1 inch of water per week. So that's the ideal condition. If you ever went out and could talk to your lawn and say, hey, you're here helping me out, giving me a great surface to play on, absorbing water, preventing erosion, keeping things cool. What could we do to make you happy? The lawn would say, well, set the thermostat right at about 65 degrees. Give me a drink of water a couple times a week and we're golden. So what happens to us in our area, we're in what's called this transition zone, right, in this Northern Virginia. So what happens is in the spring, where we are right now, of course, we're hitting that happy spot. We're in the low 60s. We've got rain in the forecast tomorrow. Lawns are going to start greening up. You're going to start seeing this happen in the weeks ahead. And this is when we're kind of in that real sweet spot, the ideal conditions for turf. This picture that you see here was taken up in northern Michigan. So as we're up here in this part of the country, these grasses just thrive. If you move further south, if you're down there where Sally is in Florida, because of the hot, dry temperatures and moisture they have down there, she's going to be primarily growing warm season grasses. So we're right here, we're kind of stuck in this transition zone, which means we can grow warm season grass, but it's going to go dormant during the cold weather. So that's not real popular. So we grow cool season grasses, and they tend to get stressed out in the heat of summer. So we've got very unique challenges to growing in our climate. And with that, a lot of the recommendations that I am making to you today are very specific to our region. As I said, we want to work in conjunction with the lawn. So when we are on target and everything's working the way it should work, the fall, the September, October, November period, that's really the ideal time to be establishing grass. That's when we do our planting, our seeding, our sodding, our fertilization, everything we do to really get the grass rooted in there and looking its best is in the fall of the year, because again, we have these cool temperatures, and we go through a fall, we go through the winter, we've got the long spring, and we're taking advantage of that part of the growing season. And then as we start moving into this time of year, our focus tends to be on weed control. So that's the ideal scenario. And we do have this lawn care calendar that I've got on the screen there. These are free. We have them at our stores, either at the cashiers or at the plant clinic. And I really encourage you, next time you're in, pick one of these up. The way it works, we essentially have two schedules in here. Schedule 1 is if I'm seeding my lawn. Schedule 2 is if I'm not seeding the lawn. And because a lot of us don't remember year to year what we're doing or supposed to do, we kind of put it all in this one little brochure. So everything I'm telling you today pretty much exists in that handout. So next time you're in, stop by and pick it up. So here's kind of what I've found over the years, working here, talking to a lot of you, kind of what I say my reality or real life situation. For whatever reason, you didn't get the seeding and repair work done in fall. You had, some damage, whether it was dogs actively, running and playing on, kids playing on it. There's a million different reasons why you didn't get the seeding done last fall. A lot of customers come in, and the very first thing they start doing, and I've been talking to you since January about this, is want to seed the lawn. And I think there's also part of it just feels really good. Hey, I do the same thing. I was out there in February putting some grass seed out. And it's just kind of like a rite of spring that we go through. And I'm not trying to stop you or discourage you from that in any way, shape, or kind. What I'm trying to do is kind of what I always say, managing your expectations, telling you what you can expect so that you don't face disappointment or feel like something failed or went wrong. So seed germination, it has a couple key factors. One is the moisture. We pretty much, every gardener knows that we need to keep that ground moist. And we've certainly had ample moisture, throughout the winter and into this spring, because the moisture actually permeates through that seed coats and activates the enzymes and starts the growth process. Grass seed is not totally unique, but grass seed actually requires sunlight for that germination process to take place. So if that grass seed gets buried deep down in the ground, like 1 inch down in the soil, it's not going to grow. So grass seed is also kept up very close to the surface. So it's just like raked into the lawn or lightly covered with some compost, not buried deep in the ground. I'm talking like 1/8 of an inch, certainly no more than 1/2 an inch maximum on there. And the real key thing that I like to emphasize is the soil temperature is what we're talking about here. Germination is dictated by both the moisture and the soil temperatures. For tall fescue grass seed to grow, which is what most of ours are growing, the optimum soil temperature is about 60 to 65 degrees. I checked 2 days ago, and the soil temperature where I am here at our Fair Oaks store was at 47 degrees. So what this means to you is you can put grass seed out, basically like I said, January, February, March, you can put your seed out now at this time of year, but it's going to sit there. And that's fine. Hey, moisture is getting in there, it's working into the soil. It's just, if you're going out to your lawn every day and you're looking at it, is it growing yet? Is it there yet? Is it there yet? Is it growing? Coming in saying, hey, what's going wrong or anything like that. This is the normal thing. That seed's going to sit there. And as our soil temperatures start to creep up and hitting about 60 degrees, that's when you're going to start to see these little seedlings sprout up, right? You can also put down too much grass seed. As you're looking at it, it comes up one little seed, one little blade, but then there's going to be a second blade, a third blade, and it needs a little elbow room. It needs to be able to kind of fill in and gain its density. It's there. If you want to track your soil temperatures, this website that I have on here, Greencast Online, I've been using this website for probably 5 years, and I've checked it against, weather conditions, and checked it, and it's by zip code, my zip code at home, my zip code here. I found it to be really pretty reliable. And this is a fun little thing. You can just go on there, you punch your zip code in, and that's an easy way to get your soil temperatures and predict what's going on in your garden. So that's the thing. Go ahead. If you want to do your seeding now, that's absolutely fine. But that seed's going to take a little while before it actually starts to germinate and grow. As I've mentioned, tall fescue is what most of us are using. It's a cool season bunch type grass. So when you put down one grass seed, it grows in this little clump. It's the most adaptable and durable of the cool season grasses in our environment. So it has a deep root system, which gives us the best heat and drought tolerance of our choices. It also adapts pretty well to full sun, to part shade, and often it's mixed with a little bit of Kentucky bluegrass. You'll see Kentucky bluegrass has this spreading growth habit. It creeps out and spreads by rhizome. And when it's mixed together, we're getting the durability, the ease of culture and care, and the rapid establishment of a tall fescue. We're mixing a little bit of bluegrass in there to kind of knit it together and hold it together, really trying to get the best of both worlds. And that's what you see right in front of me here. This is tall fescue, what probably 85% of us are growing. This is tall fescue trying to demonstrate the limits of its shade tolerance. Tall fescue is best adapted to sunny environments, but anywhere from about 4 hours of sunlight up to all day sun. And this level of shade, I can sustain a tall fescue lawn, but I have to go back in there probably on an annual basis every year towards late summer, go and do some seeding to reestablish and get that density that's back in there. If you go forward and do the seeding, again, kind of sequence is, hey, I might go through, rake out my yard, sort of comb it out, put some grass seed down, even spread a little compost over is terrific. I'll start to see it germinate probably in April when we get those warmer temperatures. Everything looks fantastic in May, and you're real proud of yourself. One of the issues that comes in, though, is we start moving into June, July, and August. If we go into really high temperatures, like I said, it's happy up to about 75 degrees. When we start hitting 85, 90, 95 degrees, you've got very young grass. It's not fully established, and there's pretty good likelihood some of that's not going to make it through the summer, and then you'll have to come back and do an additional seeding again in late summer, early fall. This is what's called fine fescue, very narrow, skinny leaf blade, a little bit slower growing, takes a little more time to get established. But this one is what we would use in sort of a heavier shade environment. So we've done at Merrifield Garden Center, of course, is we custom blend grass seeds. So for our region, so what you see like in our tough play bag, this is that tall fescue bluegrass mix I was talking about that almost everybody is going to be successful with, a good all-purpose type of turf. The varieties that go in here are all tested and evaluated at Virginia Tech, at University of Maryland, and we only select from those top-rated categories based on that local performance this year. So this is really custom blended for use throughout the Virginia, Maryland, and DC region. Our shady blend, this is what I was saying, if you're not getting that 4 hours or more of sun, then we also have a fine fescue mix, and there's some bluegrass and perennial rye in here. But we at Merrifield Garden Center, we are setting the specifications on what we want to put in here, so it's available to suit different growing environments and conditions, what you're doing, and again, using those sort of top-rated varieties. So before I move on, because we're going to really get into talking about the weeds and fertilizer and some of the other care. But before I jump into that, Sally, any questions at that point or this point in time? Like, seed selection, seeding, or anything? Or are we ready to keep just moving forward?
Yeah, so we have our first question is, what do you cover your seed with after spreading it?
So really, any type of compost works well. I would give you two choices that I think are excellent. We have one that's called McGill's Premium Compost. The McGill's, they're taking yard waste, food waste, and biosolids and composting that together. Including the biosolids in there really enriches it with higher nutrient value, which the lawn definitely greens up and looks and thrives with. So again, that's a nutrient-enriched organic soil conditioner. But the biosolids in there, it's going to smell, and some people are uncomfortable using that. And by biosolids, just make sure that you know what you're getting. This is what goes down the drain, and it's a processed sludge product, so it's all highly managed, and it's a great product to use in the lawns. If you don't want to deal with the smell, or you feel uncomfortable using something that's got biosolids in it, Leaf Grow is a fantastic alternative. Leaf Grow has all the same benefits. It's vegetative. It's leaves and grass clippings and brush, still processed, composted. It's not as nutrient dense as what the McGill's is, but usually one of those two products will do quite well for you.
Okay. All right. Next question. And I'm going to just say before I ask you this, just to let people know, we've been picking up more and more viewers from across the country and even internationally. So some of you guys, we may not be able to tailor questions directly to your needs in your area, but I'll go ahead and ask this one. Just know we're like zone 7 and
I've lived in Virginia all my life, so I'm already nervous, but go ahead.
No, this one I think you might be able to answer, but do we provide seed mix for Delaware? Which I know is
I am sure what you are using in these bags would perform equally well in Delaware.
Okay.
It's just I don't really follow their results and tests because we don't have a store in that location. But your climate, soils, and conditions are so similar to what's in Virginia and Maryland. I'm sure that it will translate just fine.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's not, it's like, I think we've got this one, but we have definitely had people from Canada, Arizona, the West. Thanks for Delaware. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay.
If you're in the transition zone, you're pretty much golden with these mixes. If you start up into, Pennsylvania and stuff, that might be, you might want to try something different, but.
Okay, got it.
To probably even North Carolina with this.
Okay, next question. How tough is the tough play grass seed? Last summer, we played cornhole on my lawn for about an hour and I had dead patches a few days later. I want something where it looks good. We can use the lawn.
So there's a limit of it was sort of like I say, a point of no return and how much foot traffic and durability it will take. So when you say how tough is it, earlier I had done quite a bit of work with athletic field and sports turf. And so a lawn like this, let's say I went out and I played cornhole on it maybe once a week, every 2 weeks or something, it probably is going to hold up into something like that. But if it's any more than that, you're going to wear it out.
Okay.
Right?
So tough can handle the occasional lawn party, but not for avid soccer players or anything.
Like we would not even use this on an athletic field, like athletic field that's getting 3 or 4 games a week played on it. It's not going to withstand that.
Got it.
Maybe once a week.
Okay. Are we getting into compost a little later?
Not really, but we can talk about it.
I was going to say, I can ask that now. Do you recommend Orgrow as a compost?
Orgrow is very, very similar to McGill's compost. Yes, it's an excellent product. I just don't say it because we don't sell it. But ours would be McGill's. Okay,
Orgrow, McGill's. Next question. Will last year's seeds still work or do I need a fresh bag?
Good question. I like to point out on the back, and this is all required by state law on the back, this little label, it will actually have a test date and a sell by date.
Okay.
We are required, I cannot sell grass seed that's more than a year old. So I actually have an expiration date and I have to watch it. Now I always say this is not like a jug of milk. It's not like you go in and suddenly it's gone bad. It does slowly deteriorate after that. If it's more than 3 years beyond that expiration date, then I would say it's a waste of time and you need to get it. But if it's like 1 or 2 years old, it's still good, really good.
So the germination rate, just success decreases.
Yes.
Next question, will leaf grow be useful to place around seedlings during upcoming frosts?
Oh yeah, yeah. Leaf grows. I love leaf grow. Again, it's just it's a compost, and to some extent, you know, it's going to help cover, let's say, almost like a mulching material. It could be used that way to help insulate the roots a little bit. It's not going to protect you from hard freeze, but yeah, I'm all about it. Just cover over seeding or over the root zone of tender plants, all about it.
Okay, well, that's all of our questions for now. So I think we're good to move on.
I'm already starting to realize I got more stuff than I have time to talk about. Let's see. So that's where we left off. And of course, if you're really into heavy full shade, we need to be looking at things that are not turf. That was my other little thing. So I want to talk to you about weeds and also fertilizing, and then we'll take some more questions. So this little weed is probably visiting everybody throughout the area. This is it's called hairy bittercress. It's in the mustard family. And what will happen is those pretty little white flowers, they pollinate, they turn into what looks almost like a tiny bean pod. And then about 4 weeks, 6 weeks from now, when they've matured, they kind of explode. They literally pop, catapult their seeds out, and then the plants die. So again, they're in their reproductive phase where they're trying to produce seeds for next year's crop. Common chickweed, you probably have this showing up in your garden. Starting to see it bloom, but it comes usually right after the bittercress that's in there. And then this is another common one. It's called dead nettle that's out there. So these are all examples of what are annual weeds. And when I say annual, is they complete this life cycle with that they will put those seeds out. Those seeds basically, you know, go through a dormancy. They begin in the seedling phase, they mature and then die. So the weeds that we just looked at, you know, the bittercress, chickweed, dead nettle, there's henbit, and a few others, they are all examples of what are called winter annual weeds. So what their cycle is, they will, like I said, they will be, they're flowering now, they'll mature their seeds and then they die. So they are dead during the summer months, right? Then that little seed starts to sprout in September, October, November. It grows during the winter time and it's flowering now. So the weeds that you see popping up in your lawn now, a lot of them are what we call winter annual weeds. There's a whole nother group of weeds that you don't see right now, but these are the summer annual weeds. So in this case, I'm looking at spotted spurge. You can see it has a little spot in the leaf there. This is purslane. These are seeds that are sitting in the ground right now today. The seeds are going in their dormant period. As those temperatures warm up and those soil temperatures start to get to their germination point, they start growing and they appear during the summer. So these are all annual weeds I'm talking about. They germinate, live, mature, and die all in one growing season. Crabgrass, Japanese stiltgrass. These are also examples of summer annual weeds. So you don't have them in your lawn now. If you go out walking around, you are not going to find these weeds. Its temperatures are still too cold. That could change literally almost any day now, because in particular, like Japanese stiltgrass, you will start to see seed germinating when that soil gets up to about 50 degrees. And like I said, 2 days ago, we were at 47. So we're right on the cusp where these things are going to start growing. All of these plants that I'm showing you, all these weeds we call, they're introduced plants. They were brought here by, colonists, for one reason or another, crabgrass is brought in as a forage crop and planted intentionally before we really understood that was a really poor forage crop, and it's a prolific seed producer and spreads. Japanese stiltgrass was accidentally introduced into this country, again, through importation with different products as a packaging material. It's here. The others were culinary plants and stuff, but they're here. They are prolific seed producers, and preventing these weeds from growing is pretty much on everybody's to-do list. So you have an opportunity. One of our most easiest and most effective ways is to stop these weeds, to put down a pre-emergent, take steps now before those weeds even appear. And a pre-emergent or weed preventer, what we're doing is we're applying a material. It creates this chemical barrier on the surface of the ground. So this is what we're looking at. It usually goes down as a granular product. You broadcast that out in the lawn. It needs to be watered in within 1 or 2 days of application. So it essentially kind of becomes soluble, and it forms this type of chemical barrier on the surface. So that when a seed starts to germinate, and I'm telling you, those seeds are sitting there, they're just waiting for the right temperature and moisture regime. And when it starts to germinate, it kills it at that root tip before it actually gets started in there. Now, the other thing I'd like to emphasize, because it's not killing the seeds, it's preventing them from being able to get rooted. And they have a time frame. It's not a one-shot deal. That barrier, that chemical barrier, degrades over time. Some products might last 3 weeks, some might last 6 weeks, some might last 12 weeks, some might last 20 weeks, but none of them last forever. So the one that I like to recommend is this. You can see there, the preen crabgrass control. It's commonly sometimes referred to or called Dimension. It's kind of a generic trade name on it. But what we can do is we can apply that. I'm saying now, which means basically like March 15 to April 15 is kind of like a bullseye point to get this down. And what we'll do is it creates that chemical barrier we're talking about, and it works on grasses like stiltgrass, crabgrass, several broadleaf weeds, and it will that barrier will remain effective for realistically about three months, about 90 days. So we like to always recommend a follow-up application. Again, this is where gardening becomes very local, because the label will tell you one application lasts all year. It just doesn't work that way for us. In our climate, we have a long growing season through the summer. We have a very wet conditions, and with the amount of rainfall we have, the length of growing season, this, if you were to put it down today, it might carry you through April, May, June. Then it degrades and all the weeds start showing up in July, August, September. So that's why we really stress doing the 2 applications. Again, all this stuff is repeated in our calendar. But this is just one of the options. Where things start to get really complicated is if you also want to seed your lawn. This stuff will also prevent your grass seed from growing. So if you're in a situation saying, hey, I want to seed my lawn because I got thin bare spots, I also want to stop weeds from growing, this product's not going to do the trick for you because it has a 10-week waiting time. If you are in that situation, this product, which is pretty unique, they're the only people I know that make it. It's called this Scott's Step 1 for seeding. It's a starter fertilizer, it's a weed preventer, and I can use it at the same time as seeding. So there's always, not always, but most of the time, we can work with you and find a solution that's going to work for you and your circumstances. So we've been selling this for a few years. It's very effective. It works wonderfully. It's going to cost you more, and then you would still need to follow up on that second application after your grass is up and growing with a longer lasting product like preen. So just, I don't expect you to know all this stuff or remember, but just kind of the take-home message is that where there's a will, there's a way. And that's why we have people at our plant clinics kind of help sort all this out for you. Another thing that where we can really focus attention on right now is, like I said, on preventing weeds, but also killing and eradicating and getting rid of weeds that are there. So this is what we call a post-emergent, something that kills weeds. And here I can differentiate it. If I have dandelions, clover, chickweed, bittercress, if I have these broadleaf weeds, there are sprays that will kill that do not injure the turf. If I remember, I think isn't tomorrow St. Patrick's Day? I think that's why I put this.
Yep, that's tomorrow.
Right. So again, I'm not trying to pick who's a weed and who's not a weed, but I just had to put the clover in there. A lot of people love clover, and we sell clover seed, and we love clover, and other people don't feel so kindly about it, but it just seemed like an appropriate one to put in there. But if you do have weeds in your lawn that you want to get rid of, what we're looking for is a day when temperatures are about 50 to 85 degrees, somewhere in that range, not too hot, not too cold, not windy, no rain in the forecast, and we can spray them with a broadleaf weed killer that's absorbed through the leaves, goes down the roots, and kills them. But again, it's always nice if you bring pictures or know the specific weed, or bring samples, and we can help select a product that's really best targeted and best meets your needs on what you're trying to control or manage there. So now I'm going to switch gears. We talked about weed control, a little bit on seeding and turf selection. I'm going to say just a couple words about fertilizer, and then we will go back to questions. So we do also custom blend fertilizers. And first of all, let me say, fertilizing your lawn right now is kind of optional. This is not like I'm saying, hey, you got to run out and fertilize your lawn. The best time of year to be fertilizing your lawn is September, October, November. That's when we build the root system. That's when we really get your grass set up. And if you had done that and you're coming through the winter, you're coming in spring, and your lawn's looking really great and you're happy with it, you don't need to fertilize it. But if you want to fertilize it, and this is really, hey, I just, you want to green it up, get things going. And this is, again, just your personal preference in there. This is an excellent fertilizer to use. You can see when we say 26012, our last visit, we talked about fertilizers. So you should know that 26 is the nitrogen part of that. It's what we call 50% slow release. So it's not going to just wash away. When you put it down, you water it in, half of that nitrogen there is it gives you sort of this quick punch up, and you get some green coloration, some immediate gratification. The other 50% is going to break down slowly over a period of about 8 or 10 weeks. So you get a nice sustained growth and green up with it, and really greatly reduces any risk of burning your lawn or being excessive with it. So it's an excellent fertilizer. The zero phosphate is what we use to on existing lawns, and that's really a water quality protection regulations there. It's, again, just being responsible and trying to prevent any phosphorus from possibly getting into the waterway. Now, if you are seeding, that's where we're going to switch products on you. And I would recommend using the Merrifield Select. The difference is the numbers on here, if you can see them, are 14, 18, 14. So we went from a zero phosphorus fertilizer to one that contains 18%. And we do this because that phosphate is really utilized in the cell division of plants. So when you got a little seed that's germinating, when it's trying to get its roots established, when it's trying to get its leaves growing, when it's in this kind of rapid growth period, that phosphate aids in the germination and the establishment of the grass. So the only time that we're going to be using this is if I'm overseeding the lawn, or I'm repairing patches, or putting sod down. But really, one of those two fertilizers should meet your needs on whatever you're doing. Now, here's the schedule. This is how I would use those fertilizers. When I have this low, medium, and high range, it's really based on your expectations of what you want out of your lawn. If I'm just, hey, I'm just trying to maintain lawn that's in good health, that's going to maintain density and stop erosion and be functional, maybe I fertilize it once in October. If I want to take a step further on that, I might fertilize it in September and again in October. If I'm on that high range, September, October, November, and then I might come back here in this kind of mid-spring time period and apply it again. Okay, so how much, and it's quite honestly, when you use it is up to you. Within this calendar, when you pick it up, what you see is we offer a window of application. That window of application for a fertilizer might go, I think, anywhere from like March 15 all the way up to June 15. So when I have these dates in here, those are not absolutes. Those are kind of recommended, or what I'm going to say, kind of the ideal timing to go in there, but we always have flexibility to work within that. Now, I've got one last thing I want to talk to you before we take our questions. Bunch of people have had moss in their yard this year. I'm kind of guessing, assuming it's because if you think back again, January and February is very mild. We had good moisture. We had temperatures that were staying 50, 60, 70. One day we went up to 80. And so what happens is this is really ideal growing conditions for moss. Moss is a very, very primitive spore producing plant. It doesn't really have vascular tissue like higher plants do. It doesn't have the roots and stem and, you know, true leaf formation and all. What it does is moss has just a very, very superficial kind of remnant root system. Sometimes it's called rhizoid. It literally sucks its water and nutrients right off the surface. So you can find moss, right? You'll find it growing on a brick. You'll find moss growing on a roof. You'll find moss growing on a tree trunk. To me, moss is not really a weed. Moss is, I think it's a beautiful, lovely little primitive plant, interesting biology. And what it does, though, is it's something of an indicator that tells us something about the conditions that are there. And there are thousands of species of mosses. And they can grow from hot, arid conditions to moist, shady, damp conditions to aquatic conditions. So we tend to generalize a lot of stuff. It's a highly variable plant. Where we see it, where we encounter it in our climate most often is in soil that maybe is compacted and dense. So it's staying wet. It's often in the shade. Moss does need a pretty steady supply of moisture. If that area dries up, then usually the moss dries up and kind of goes dormant. So when I see moss, I immediately start a conversation about the soil and the soil environment and the conditions that are there. I think there's a lot of quick, easy answers out there, but they don't tell the full story. One of my favorites, of course, is many, many times people say, oh, well, you got moss, your soil's acidic, you need to put lime down. There's just not a word of truth in any of that. Those are like so generalized. I don't even like to talk about it. pH can play a part in this, but that's just one part of it. Most of the time, again, it's compacted soils are saying damp. So where we see moss, we really work on improving the environment, which means I need actual soil. So a plant like grass can put roots down in there, type of thing. So it's loosening soils, conditioning it. And the way we do that oftentimes is by aeration, which helps cultivate and loosen the soil. We put compost back into it, top dressing to try to build a better soil environment. If we can do anything about the shade, we can do that. We can also look at the nutrition and pH of the soil and optimize that. But it's not a real easy thing. We have to try to go about creating a more lawn-friendly environment, or we can just switch gears and really learn to love moss, which is, to me, an easier, kind of sometimes smarter way to do it. So there are moss killers. I can show you this. And a moss killer, and this is just one that we've sold for years and I've had good success with, like Moss Max. There's another called Moss Out, very similar. This will kill the moss and it kills it quickly, but if we don't change the environment, if the environment stays the same, the weather stays the same, then the moss is coming back, is kind of my point. So you might go to this as like a quick fix, but that's all it really is a quick fix. And I'm talking about this because one of our regular viewers, and Paula, I hope you're out there, because Paula had sent me pictures and I was a little stumped because I know we've been working together and you have a nice lawn area, the gentle slope, you've been doing the soil testing, you've got grass well established, and you still have moss. It's not fitting the profile. I think that it's happening because just our weather, the mild temperatures, the amount of rainfall that we had, that might be an environment where, hey, we can put the moss out down, kill that moss out, and hopefully it will actually even work in that because I know you've got a good environment. Okay, I'm going to take a breather. I have, oh my goodness, only like 6 minutes left or something. I always have too much to say, but let's see how many questions we can fit in here at the end.
All right, thanks, David. I'm seeing a lot of questions come in on specific weeds. So what I'm going to try to do, everybody, is focus on stuff that's a little bit more generally applicable to the most people. And then if we don't get to specific weeds, then you can follow up with our plant clinic and we'll help you guys with your specific issue. All right, so let's start. If you put down grub control, do you do that before or after seeding and before or after composting?
So the grub control has like no interaction with seeding or composting or anything. You can, use that at the same time as seeding, after seeding, whatever works for you. The thing is right now it's too early in the season to be putting it down. The grubs are not active. They're still in their winter dormancy. So again, depending a little bit on what control strategy you are using, that's something I wouldn't even think about addressing until we get pretty much into May. So stop by, talk to us, and we'll explain more detail. But that's more a matter of just timing it with the life cycle of the insect. Really, it doesn't interact with the other culture.
Okay, got it. Can you reiterate, after, if you're going to apply crabgrass preventer, how long do you need to wait after seeding?
So that product that I showed you, the one that's the preen crabgrass control in the yellow bag, that's a 10-week waiting time. So if I put that down now, I would have to wait 10 weeks before I could do my seeding, and that's putting us pretty late in the year. So that's really like I just say no bueno. If you're in that predicament, that one that's called that Scott Step 1 is a starter fertilizer combined with a weed preventer that's to be used the same day as seeding. No wait.
So if you're starting everything right now, you probably want to go with Scott's.
We do. And I brought, it comes in a small bag. So again, that's why they changed the names. This is the same product. I think it does like 1,000 square feet. The bag I showed you in the picture does like 4,000 square feet. So that's why I keep saying, you just got to talk to us, know that it exists, and we'll make sure you get the right product. But yes, this is an example. Fertilizer, weed preventer, use it the same day as seeding.
Okay. Here's a good question. This person is trying to kill some ivy and vinca, and the question is, what is your most powerful weed killer?
That stuff is really, really hard to get rid of. I think your best choice is what's often put in like poison ivy brush killer. Again, it's going to be a combination. You could spray it with the poison ivy brush killer. One of the things I want to emphasize though, this is absorbed through the leaves, not the roots, because too often I have people that pull the vinca and ivy out and then want to treat the soil. That's backwards. We want to treat the vinca and the ivy, then pull it out because it's actually absorbed through the leaf tissue. But yeah, like a poison ivy brush killer is your best choice.
Okay. Next question. How low should I cut my lawn before putting down compost and seed?
Yeah, on a tall fescue lawn, tall fescue bluegrass lawn, I really don't want to go, really don't like even going much below 2 inches, maybe 1.5 inches, but I don't ever want to scalp the lawn where you're just trying to get it right down to the ground level. But yeah, you can go down to like 1.5, 2 inches.
1.5 or 2 inches. Okay. Here's a question I have not thought of, but if you've planted a new, like other plants that aren't lawn, new plants, this person has a small dogwood and a lilac. Is there any issue if the fertilizer for your turf comes into contact with those plants? Do you want to keep them separated?
No issue at all. The one thing that you don't want to happen are the weed killers, not the pre-emergent controls, but the stuff that kills weeds will also kill your flowers or shrubs. So if it's like a weed and feed combination, that's kind of like a red flag. If you're spraying or applying weeds killers, that's why we always want to do it when there's no wind. If you were out there when we had 40-mile-an-hour gusts, that stuff can go everywhere and cause a lot of damage.
My mom accidentally killed a palm tree with weed killer.
Yeah, it happens more often than we like to admit or like to accept.
Yeah. Okay, let's see here. Okay, we're at 2:45, so we're gonna go ahead and call it just to be respectful of everybody's time here. I do see we have some questions about some very specific different weeds, onion grass, poa annua.
No good answers.
Pardon?
No good answers on that one.
Oh God, oh no. Okay. Well,
Oh,
if you guys have questions or you're struggling with any of those weeds in your lawn, please feel free to contact me. I'll get you in touch with David. You can visit one of our plant clinics. We have people at all of our plant clinics who can help you, or come see David or give us a call. Lots of ways to get in touch. We're happy to look at the specific weeds you're dealing with, give you any assistance that we can. I'm saying we, I mean the plant clinic. I can't help you, but I will give you moral support. So just to let everybody know, this webinar was recorded. We do not send out follow-up emails after these virtual plant clinics because they are live streamed. But if you want the recording, please feel free to email me. If you have any questions following, please feel free to email me. And I think, as David said, there's that year-round lawn care guide that's a print piece that's available in our stores. David, can people pick that up from the plant clinic?
yes, and we try keeping both at the registers and the plant clinic. So we have them available at all three locations.
Okay, yeah. So you can always stop by and pick those up if you want some good materials. Those are really good guides that I know everybody worked hard on creating. So I think that's it. We've got some good classes this weekend. If you're going out to Gainesville, Louis Ratchford is discussing woodland gardens, and we have Janet Draper. She's a horticulturist for the Smithsonian. I can't remember the specific garden, but she'll be at the Fair Oaks store discussing reliable perennials this Saturday at 10 a.m. for both. I think that's it. David, do you have anything you'd like to close with?
Like I said, I just did want to remind everybody, we also have in-person classes, so we'd love to see you there. And Sally's giving you a rundown of that. Just a little small thing, but my schedule changes this time of year. I will now be working at the plant clinic in Merrifield on Saturdays. So usually I'm at Fair Oaks, but now I'll be out at Merrifield. So either store, I hope to see you there.
All right. Thank you so much, David. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us today, and hopefully we'll see some of you this weekend. Have a great afternoon.